number 10, let's look at it being a holy day. Almost every bride, of course, feels like a princess on her wedding day, and especially walking down the aisle, right? And Jewish weddings, though, it's considered to be a very sacred event and a Yom Kippur for the bride and the groom. It means that the day is like the Day of Atonement and the Day of Forgiveness, okay? Also, previous sins of the bride and groom are forgiven, and they take vows that connect their soul. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to incorporate in the wedding tradition. Next up at number 9, we have the SHABBAT KALLAH. It's an event in which those close to the bride, like her friends and her family and people from the community, they throw an event for the bride. Now, this is an all-girls party, so no guys are allowed there, sort of like a bachelorette party. Now, the event of the SHABBAT KALLAH is held on the Saturday before the wedding. But the SHABBAT KALLAH is more than just an excuse for Jewish girls to go and party. It's a purposeful event where all the close people are there for the bride to make sure that she feels love and to ease her nerves before her big wedding day. For the tradition at number 8, let's look at Yom Kippur. Now, I mentioned a bit of this earlier, but I want to add to this point. Some Jews actually fast on their wedding day. Now, why do they do this? Well, like I mentioned, the wedding is considered a day of forgiveness, and as such, some couples choose to fast the day of their wedding, just as they do on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The couple's fast will last until the first meal together after the wedding ceremony. The tradition of CHUPPAH comes in at number 7. Jewish weddings are held under special canopies called CHUPPAH. And now they're held up by 4 poles and have a roof, and it is the first roof that is shared by the couple. Its structure reflects and pays tribute to the open tent that the biblical figures Abraham and Sarah shared. Their home was never closed to the community, and they greeted all of their guests openly and hospitably. The wedding ceremony of Jews begins when the groom enters a CHUPPAH. Now, in most weddings, the bride circles 7 times around her husband before joining him, which represents that she is making walls for their future life. At number 6, let's look at the tradition of BADEKEN. Normally, we have seen that the groom unveils his bride, but the opposite happens in many Jewish weddings. The groom veils his bride, actually, and this veiling takes place in the BADEKEN ceremony. And it's an important part of the wedding. The bride tried her best to look beautiful and stunning on her big day, so why veil the face? Well, let me explain. The veil is worn because no matter how beautiful the bride appears, beauty is fleeting, and it's the quality of a person's character and spirit that truly matters. The veil represents that now the groom is ready to protect, clothe, and provide for his wife.
ZAFFA comes in next at number 5. ZAFFA is a traditional dance that is performed in weddings in Middle Eastern countries, especially in the country of Lebanon. It's like a grand entrance celebration for the newlywed couple. And now the tradition starts with the bride's father bringing his daughter to the groom. And during this whole event, the band of drummers, they play traditional Arabic music. And in some traditions, actually, the rings are changed to the opposite hand. You'll hear female relatives performing zagruta. Also, traditionally, male and female dancers, they perform a special dance wearing special clothing to welcome in the couple. And also, this is a pretty popular thing, so much so that it was recently adopted by Beirut as well. In some weddings, the ZAFFA performers will carry the bride on their shoulders and bring them to the event. Let's look at DABKE at number 4. DABKE is a folk dance performed by professional dancers in some Arab weddings. Wedding guests also join the dance and dance in a circle. However, one thing to know is that in Egypt, instead of DABKE, belly dancing is done to entertain the guests. For number 3, we have BARMET AL-AROOS. This is a farewell that's given to the bride and groom before they leave. Now, the couple goes into a beautiful decorated vehicle, and the relatives and the friends, they follow the couple to their home and play loud music to let everybody know that this couple just got married. They're making a whole lot of noise up in the streets. Let's move on now to number 2, and this is Moroccan kaftan. Moroccan weddings are among the most traditional in the region. During the ceremony, which can last from 3 days to a week depending on the financial situation of the couple, and it also depends on the region that the wedding is happening in. But the bride wears her best kaftans in the form of a coat or overdress, usually reaching to the ankles and with long sleeves. And finally, number 1, we have Egypt's honeymoon. Honeymoons in Egypt differs from one part of the country to another. When we look at the countryside in Egypt, the newlywed couples, they rarely travel for their honeymoon. Instead, they stay home for the first 7 days of their marriage before entertaining friends and families who come to see them, bring them gifts and food, as well as anything else that they might need. But when you look over into the urban parts of Egypt, married couples, they commonly spend the first night of their honeymoon in a hotel, and that's where they celebrate their union before they travel to a resort. It could be overseas, or it could be a local resort, like traveling to the Red Sea, for instance.
So the first fact to know about divorce is that before Islam, divorce among the Arabs was governed by unwritten customary law, which varied according to region and tribe, and its observance depended on the authority of the individuals and groups involved. In this system, women were particularly vulnerable. However, the Quranic rules of marriage and divorce provided a fixed set of norms for all Muslims, backed by divine authority and enforced by the community. The early Islamic reforms included giving the wife a possibility to initiate divorce, abrogation of the husband's claim to the wife's property, condemnation of divorce without compelling reason, and criminalizing unfounded claims of infidelity made by the husband. Another surprising fact is that in pre-Islamic times, men kept their wives in a state of limbo by continually repudiating them and taking them back at will. However, the Quran limited the number of repudiations to 3, after which the man cannot take his wife back unless she first marries another man. Another fact that many people may not know about divorce in Islam is that talaq, which is the Arabic word for divorce, is considered in Islam to be a reprehensible means of divorce. The initial declaration of talaq, though, is a revocable repudiation, which does not terminate the marriage. The husband can revoke the repudiation at any time during the waiting period, known as iddah, which lasts 3 full menstrual cycles. The waiting period is intended to give the couple an opportunity for reconciliation and also a means to ensure that the wife is not pregnant. The resumption of sexual relations automatically retracts the repudiation, and the wife retains all her rights during their waiting period. The divorce becomes final when the waiting period expires. So divorce, as I had mentioned, is known as talaq, can actually be classified in several subsections. Talaq types can be classified in talaq al-sunnah, which is thought to be in accordance with Muhammad's teachings, and talaq al-bida', which are viewed as bida', which are innovations or deviations from it. Talaq al-sunnah is further subdivided into talaq al-ahsan, which is the least disapproved form of talaq, and talaq al-ahsan. The ahsan talaq involves a single revocable pronouncement of divorce and sexual abstinence during the waiting period. The Hasan divorce involves 3 pronouncements made during the wife's status of ritual purity, with menstrual periods intervening between them, and no intercourse having taken place during the time. In contrast to talaq as-sunnah, talaq al-bida' does not observe the waiting period and irrevocably terminates the marriage. At fact number 6, divorce is further split up in another type of divorce known as khula, which is a contractual type of divorce that is initiated by the wife. It is further based on a hadith in which Muhammad instructs a man to agree to his wife's wishes of divorce if she gives him back a garden received from him as part of her mahr, which is a nuptial gift made by the groom to the bride at the time of marriage. A khula is concluded when the couple agrees to a divorce in exchange for a monetary compensation paid by the wife, which cannot exceed the value of the mahr that she had originally received, and is generally a smaller sum or involves forfeiting the still unpaid portion. As in the case of talaq, remarriage is possible possible until a khula is concluded for the third time. If the husband pressures his wife to agree to khula instead of pronouncing talaq, which would let him avoid attendant financial responsibilities, the divorce is then considered to be invalid.
All right, let's get back to this episode. We have tradition number 5, and that is the vows and blessings. So sometimes following the nikah, there may be other traditions included into the ceremony, like the recitation of Fatiha, which is the first chapter of the Quran. And now in many cases, Muslim couples do not say their vows, but there's a wedding officiator that generally speaks about the importance of marriage and things like that. But yes, at some Muslim weddings, the bride and the groom, they do say their vows, and a common format that they follow is this. So the bride would say, I, the bride's name, offer you myself in marriage in accordance with the instructions of the Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. I pledge in honesty and with sincerity to be for you an obedient and faithful wife. And then the groom would say, I pledge in honesty and sincerity to be for you a faithful and helpful husband. Number 4 brings us the ZAFFA tradition. The ZAFFA is the newlywed couple's grand epic entrance to their wedding reception. You'll typically find this at a Muslim Arab wedding, and it typically starts off with the bride's father walking his daughter to her groom, and it's then followed by a little parade of drummers and musicians playing Arabic music. And during the ZAFFA, the rings are moved from the right hand to the left hand. And that leads us to tradition number 3, the final farewell. This tradition is all about the bride and the groom leaving their wedding. So when they're driving out in their vehicle, it's usually a decorated vehicle, friends and family members, they go and follow that vehicle in their own vehicles, where they can be heard playing loud music and honking, you know, just to let the whole world know that, hey guys, these people just got married, so let's make a lot of noise in the streets. Tradition number 2 is arranged marriage. So Muslim marriages are sometimes arranged by the parents. It still happens, yes. Although divorce is allowed in certain circumstances, the ideal is to actually find a partner that you're not going to divorce. So yes, the parents do what they can to make sure that they find suitable partners for their children. And just to make it clear, it is forbidden in the religion of Islam for parents as well as others to force or try to trick people into getting married to somebody for whatever reason. And although many marriages can be arranged, it has to be with the two parties willingly consenting to get married. A Muslim male and a Muslim female are both expected to be virgins at the time of their first marriage. Of course, if they remarry, that's not necessarily a requirement because they were married before and that marriage would have been consummated. The tradition number 1 in this episode is signing on behalf of the bride. So in Islam, not every person consummates their marriage physically right away. Like for instance, sometimes the bride is very young, so it's considered to be a lot more suitable just to wait until she's a bit older to consummate the marriage. And sometimes the couple may not even be able to live together for whatever reason, so of course it can't be consummated. But a wedding contract though may be put together and signed and witnessed without the bride actually being there in person. And this can be done, like I mentioned, if the bride doesn't plan to live with her spouse right away. Almost like you're married, but like you're in that limbo phase. You're kind of just waiting to finalize the marriage, but on paper and in front of witnesses and in front of Allah, you're married.